What's up, guys? Matt Brown here for thelines.com, playpicks.com. With Brett Colson, we are going to run down Best Ball 2020. There is a massive new contest that has been announced over at DraftKings. There's a new site on the market in Underdog. Maybe you're playing just over at Fanball, which has been around for several years now. But wherever you're doing Best Ball, there's probably going to be some new eyeballs here, Brett, on this with DraftKings getting in to the market. You had to kind of seek out Best Ball before if you wanted to, but now DraftKings is going to make it up close and personal right in your face here. And so we wanted to give people kind of a breakdown of how this all works.
Yeah, right in my face. They came out with a $3 million contest, man. $20 buy-in, $1 million to first. Best Ball, I think this is going to help Best Ball explode a little bit, this contest right here. DraftKings is the brand for fantasy sports. And now we've got Best Ball right on DraftKings, right in your hand. I got a draft going on right now that my first one at DraftKings. So it's pretty exciting. And yeah, we're going to get into it.
Yeah, it's great, guys. If you're new to Best Ball, so basically your entire league is just the draft. That is all there is to it. There is no waiver wire. There is no setting your lineup. There is no agonizing over who you are going to put in that flex spot or any kind of anything like that. You draft a very deep team, a very deep bench, and the best, whatever the roster construction is, whichever site you're playing at. Typically, let's just take DraftKings, for example. We're going to look at a quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a tight end, and a flex. It will automatically insert your highest scoring player at those positions each and every week. You do not have to worry about your starting lineup at all. If you draft 3 different quarterbacks, it is going to put in your highest scoring quarterback into your quarterback spot, so on and so forth at the running back, wide receiver, tight end, and the flex positions as well. So, Brett, it's a different type of league, a different type of fantasy football, and with that comes a different strategy as well, because when you're not able to hit a waiver wire, or in traditional DFS, when you're not able to change your team out every single week, there is different thought processes and different strategies that go into this.
Yeah, absolutely. Very different than your traditional redraft season-long fantasy football, because like you said, there is no waiver wire. You are building a team and then you're stuck with that team the whole way, which is kind of fun too, because it's set it and forget it. And then you can focus on your season-long teams and your DFS during the season while also having the sweat of the best ball that you did before the season. So a lot of different ways to get into fantasy football this season at DraftKings and Underdog, which just launched recently as well. So pretty exciting, man. It is.
And I'm going to be in there heavily. I know you're already in there heavily, and it's going to be good times. Hopefully we can take down these big prizes that are going to go on at these two sites that we're playing at here. But let's talk about player allocation. So it is different, guys. Again, you can't just you can't stream, right? Because there's no picking up or dropping or anything like that. So when you get to these positions, how do you want to go about it? Now, let's start at the quarterback position. And Brett, basically for me, it's either 2 or 3, and it really just depends on if you get one of the big 2 as to whether you only go 2 quarterbacks or whether you go 3. If you get a Mahomes and a Lamar, depending on how you go about wanting to build your team, I think you can get by with only taking 2 quarterbacks. Outside of those 2 guys, which, those guys just put up such massive totals each and every week. If you get outside of that, I think probably the safest way to go is 3 quarterbacks. There's been studies done. They've gone back and looked at historical winners and teams that have cashed in these various best ball leagues. There's really isn't a big difference between taking 2 and 3, but I think if you're new to the game and especially if you're risk averse here, taking 3 just makes you feel a little bit better about your situation, because if one of your quarterbacks does get hurt, if you've only got 2, it can certainly eliminate you from contention pretty quick.
Definitely. I always draft quarterbacks late anyway, unless I somehow find myself with a Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes like later than they should be there. So I'm almost always drafting quarterback late. And yeah, the safe play is to go with 3, because you're not really spending any capital on quarterbacks if they're going late, and you can do some weird. The lack of position scarcity of quarterback allows you to get someone who's going to be playing every single week late in the draft. So that's why I always go late at quarterback. You're going to get points from somebody at quarterback, regardless of who it is, as long as they're not benched or
Right.
on the injury report. But yeah, I mean, I almost always recommend going late at quarterback because you can get a guy who's going to score points and could have a spike week if he's up against a bad defense.
And if you take a look, guys, I mean, from the quarterback position, I mean, this is when we talk about being able to get guys that are playing every single week late. I mean, if you look at kind of like the ADP of some of these guys, and again, think about it, it's a best ball scenario, right? So it's going to automatically insert your best guy each and every week. So, you know, the ADP of a Daniel Jones is 116. That guy's not getting benched. Like, they are going to play him each and every single week. Baker Mayfield, 127. Teddy Bridgewater, 167. You know, you look at these guys, Joe Burrow going, 130s, 140s, stuff like that. Phillip Rivers going in the 160s. So these are all guys that are going to play every single week, barring injury, right? I mean, they're not benching Joe Burrow. They are not benching Daniel Jones, Phillip Rivers, Teddy Bridgewater. They just paid these guys a bunch of money to come in and man these offenses. They are not benching these guys. So they're going to play every single week. So, Brett, if you have a combination of some of these guys or even three of these guys along the way, as you mentioned, like one of these guys is going to have a good week typically in any given week.
Yeah, and I have a lot of combinations of the guys that you just ran off. Mm-hmm. The Mayfields, the Rivers, the Teddy Bridgewaters, guys who are falling towards the bottom of drafts who you can get for the cheapest of the cheap. Mm-hmm. And you can kind of build up your skill position players early on and still get guys like a Mayfield, who I think has a lot of upside this year, coming back with a new system, a lot of the same guys coming back in that offense, and he's coming in like way later in drafts than he was last year. So a good opportunity to maybe jump on him, or, Teddy Bridgewater, who finds himself as the guy in Carolina and I'm probably going to be throwing a lot more football. So there is definitely some value at quarterback late in the draft.
At the running back position, I typically say minimum of 4, maximum of 6, and it really just depends on kind of how your lineup build starts to go. But I think the one thing you and I agree on wholeheartedly here is we try to get at least a couple of studs early, because as we've seen, guys, the way that this league is shifting, it is a passing league. And so the difference between these tier 1 running backs and the tier 2 running backs is so massive these days that if you hold off and you don't take a running back in kind of that top 4, 5, 6 rounds, which I know a lot of people are 0 running back and whatever and things like that, but you don't take one of those guys in the top 6 rounds, Brett, you're going to be praying every single week that something happens in your favor, as opposed to just knowing that you've got a pretty good baseline of what you're going to get at that running back position. Because once you get out of that top tier, it is it's going to be a crapshoot. You're going to need an injury. You're going to need a change in kind of offensive strategy.
Yeah, and you're far more likely to get a spike week out of a wide receiver. So that's why you should front load your team with running backs early in the draft. It's going to depend. The amount of players you have at each position is going to depend on the flow of the draft and what you take where. I mean, I've had situations where I've taken Michael Thomas late in the first round because I prefer him there over some of the running backs. I think it's great value at the end of the first round. So then you don't have to look for darts at wide receiver late in the draft. You can use some picks to fill in running back, possible guys who could fill in at running back, who could find themselves in a starting position late in the season, late in the draft. So it's you kind of do the inverse of what you were doing if you had taken running backs early on. So it really depends on what happens early in the draft. But for the most part, I would say front load with running backs and kind of fill the rest of the squad late with wide receivers who could have a big week potential.
That's absolutely the perfect lead in here for this, where, look, I'm typically taking 8 to 9 wide receivers. I think 7 would be the minimum that I would recommend for you. And Brett just mentioned exactly the reason why, because this is where you're going to get a lot of bust weeks, but a lot of spike weeks as well. This is where you're really going to need to use the depth of your bench and get those guys that 5 times a year, 6 times a year, go for 5 catches and over 100 yards, and then the other weeks they're getting 1 for 10, and that's fine because they're not going to be plugged into your lineup anyway. We're looking for those big spike weeks. We're looking for those guys that have the chance to go off in any given week here. And so I want to give myself as many chances as possible to get those. And so, Brett, I have very, very, very few teams that don't have at least 8 wide receivers.
Yeah, same. I've got like 20 teams I'm working on right now, and most of them have between 7 and 9. And like I said, the only situations where I don't have that many is where I just decided to. I do have some, like, not zero RB teams, but where I went heavy on wide receiver early because I like the value up there at the top. So I had like a Michael Thomas and a Juju and a DJ Moore.
That said, you're diversifying too, right? I mean, like you have a ton of teams, and so like you don't want to just build the exact same team every single time.
Right, exactly. So yeah, I mean, so there, like if I have those 3 guys, I don't need to worry about wide receiver really, and then I can just kind of figure out what I want to do at running back and tight end and fill those gaps. So yeah, you just kind of have to adjust on the fly. And, in these big contests, like you said, I really like to diversify what I'm doing, not do the same thing every time, and kind of give myself more bullets and a chance to win one of these big contests.
At the tight end position, guys, this is really goes to how you go about building your team. If you get one of the big 2, if you get a Kelsey or Kittle, I would say you could definitely get by with 2 tight ends because you are basically going to play Kelsey or Kittle nearly every single week outside of their bye week. I mean, it is going to be very rare that you don't play those guys getting inserted into your lineup. Now, once you get outside of that, I would probably say go 3 because tight end is just so incredibly volatile that you're really going to need to kind of throw some darts and hope that one of your darts actually hits. So, Brett, I don't know how you have really been constructing lineups here. I have a lot where I'm starting running back and Kittle or running back and Kelsey because I see the value in those guys just being so high above a lot of the other guys out there at that position that I think it gives you a nice little edge, and if I don't do that, you're going to find me just waiting, and I'll take 3 and I will hope one of the 3 each week kind of hits for me is really the strategy at tight end for me.
Yeah, what I found so far is if you're sitting in the middle of the first round, you take a running back. When it comes back to you in the second round, there might not be a top tier running back left. Mm-hmm. And then you're left with either one of the top 2 tight ends or a wide receiver. And in that case, yeah, I would prefer to take the tight end because you're getting the elite of the elite, the guys who can't miss unless they get hurt, is Kelsey and Kittle. And you don't have to worry about tight end anymore. Like you're pretty much set. You want to back up, obviously, somebody who doesn't have the same bye week as one of those guys, which we'll get into later. But yeah, I love having one of those tight ends because the position's set. You can focus your efforts on running back and wide receiver.
On the stacking side of things, if you guys play traditional DFS, you understand how stacking works probably by now. At first, it was kind of this newfangled strategy, and people who figured it out were absolutely crushing the game. Mm-hmm. Now, everybody knows about stacking. When it comes to football specifically, it would be a quarterback and a pass catcher. Now we've kind of gotten some evidence here that, hey, and if an offense is going off, everybody's going off. So there's even very good correlation between these pass catching running backs and wide receivers and tight ends and quarterbacks and things like that. And Brett, I think we carry this over into these big tournaments over in best ball. Now it's a little bit different if you're playing smaller, if you're just playing like the contained kind of best ball leagues here. But if you're trying to go and do these big tournaments where you're going to go after the $1 million on DraftKings or something, we consistently want to maximize our upside. And that's the reason we do it in the GPPs in traditional DFS. And I think that applies here as well. We're trying to maximize upside. And so if I have, let's talk about Teddy Bridgewater. If I have Teddy Bridgewater, if I'm lucky enough to get the one overall pick, if I can get Christian McCaffrey and I can get Teddy Bridgewater and I can get DJ Moore, then I'm going to do that. And I'm going to do that as often as I possibly can and hope that pays dividends here whenever these guys have big games and whenever the Panthers actually put some points on the board. So I like stacking. I think it's a very viable strategy here, and I would certainly recommend it where applicable. Don't go crazy, with your draft because you feel like you have to do it. But if you can go in with some sort of strategy, I would say that, hey, there's a decent strategy in stacking.
Yeah, don't stack the entire Jets offense.
Right.
because you're not going to advance through the first 12 weeks if you do that, chances are. But definitely upside in doing it, because once you get through the first 12 rounds, it almost plays like a DFS GPP where you're looking for the max upside. You have to beat more people. All the money's at the top. You're looking to get the highest score possible. And if one of these teams goes off, like the Carolina Panthers, and you have Christian McCaffrey and Teddy Bridgewater and DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel, you're going to be one of the few teams that have all those guys. And that's going to help you win one of these tournaments. And we've seen it the past couple of years in these big best ball contests. The teams that finish at the top, they stack. Yeah. So it is a proven winning strategy, and it's something that I've been doing a lot this year, and I know you have too. Yeah,
we mentioned the Panthers. It is one of my favorite ones because it's actually doable. If you you need the one overall pick if you're going to get McCaffrey, but you can definitely stack Bridgewater with pass catchers. That's easy to pull off. Another one that I've been able to pull off a lot is the Lions. I've been able to get Stafford and either Galladay and Jones, or Jones or both. Sometimes I'll go ahead and take Galladay and Jones as well. That's another easy stack to pull off. It's going to be real hard to pull off a stack with the Chiefs because Mahomes comes at such a premium, Kelsey comes at such a premium, Tyreek Hill comes at such a premium. It's going to be very, very hard to pull off a stack with that team, but you can stack with some of these other teams that, it doesn't seem quite as sexy, Brett, but we just need those weeks. We just need those spike weeks from these offenses.
Yeah, the Chiefs one is I've seen several people do the Chiefs one. You can do it with the 12-13 or the 11-14 grab like Hill and Kelsey, or Edwards-Helaire and Kelsey, and then get Mahomes in the third round. Like, that's doable, and there's a lot of upside there. But I don't know. It's hard for me to do that because I feel like you're reaching on a Hill or Kelsey. Yeah. That early. I don't know. It could definitely work. I also see a lot of people doing it, so I don't want to get in the habit of like chasing and trying to separate myself with the Chiefs stacks. But I have seen a lot of that one. But I'm with you. I mean, the Lions is a fun one. You can work in like a DeAndre Swift. You can still get pretty late into that one as well. Hawkinson, you can get pretty good value on, a guy who has such a high pedigree. And the Colts we'll talk about, because that is my favorite one. The Browns I like a lot too.
Yeah, it's a huge fan of that Colts offense as well. Now, one of the strategies in season long is handcuffing a running back. And that is, obviously because with the way this works, if you spend such high draft capital, especially if you're playing in kind of, a higher stakes league or whatever it might be, there are people who don't want to be up a creek if their stud guy goes down. I do it sometimes. I don't do it other times. We're not here to debate whether you want to do that in season long. Let's talk about it here, though, from a best ball standpoint. What if people like to handcuff? What if they're handcuffers? They love to do it. What do you think about doing it in these best ball tournaments?
In the big tournaments, you got to get away from it. You got to wean yourself off it. You need every single player on your roster to have the ability to contribute. If you're stacking a running back with his handcuff, for example, Dalvin Cook, Alexander Madison he's cheap, but he's not super cheap. Like, you're going to have to, he's going around ADP, I don't know, right around 100. If you're spending that much capital on a guy, you need him to be able to contribute if given the opportunity. Yep. And you don't know that he's going to get the opportunity. If you have Cook and Madison, only one of them is going to be contributing. So you're wasting a pick on either Cook or Madison there. So really, I like getting Madison if you don't have Cook way more than handcuffing, because then you have the opportunity to have Madison in addition to your already starting running backs, and then you've just got a beastly running back core. So I have not been handcuffing at all, unless I can get like really good value on somebody late. But even still, like maybe a Henry, Darrington Evans type thing. Yeah. But other than that, I just don't see any value in it.
Things that you're going to want to pay attention to, guys, as you're doing this, if you're new to best ball, and even if you're not, it's just a good reminder. First and foremost, stick players in your queue. The way that these things work, if you're doing a slow draft, I mean, like, you'll take a pick and you might not make a pick for a long time. Life gets in the way. You travel, you're at work, you're at a restaurant, you don't have cell service, whatever it might be. And then you find yourself in a situation where the computer just makes an auto pick for you. And Brett, what happens is, as the guys start ticking off, the less desirable guys keep going higher and higher and higher and getting stuck at the top of those pre-ranked rankings there. And so you end up getting a guy that's hurt, or a guy that you don't want, or a guy that at a position that you've already filled, whatever it might be. So a very, very simple thing that you can do to help yourself just be better at this is just sticking guys in your queue.
You see it happen every year. Guys draft players they don't want because their internet went out, or they had to go take their dog out for 2 minutes, or whatever it was. If you stick guys that you want in your queue, they'll automatically get drafted when it's on you. And so it's the most basic advice we can give, but we still see it happen every single year.
Time and time again.
Whether you're doing it when you're in a fast draft or a slow draft, always have guys in your queue just in case something happens where you miss your pick. You're not drafting. I don't even know. You're drafting like Deebo Samuel early before he got hurt. His ADP, you're getting that versus what it is now. So that's not an area you want to find yourself in.
The other thing here is taking a look at ADP, taking a look at the pre-draft ranking system that is going on the sites and where they have the players located and things like that. Because, Brett, there's edges to be found there as well. Like we said, if there's a player that you are really into, that you want to be overweight on, you need to kind of know what the ADP is of that guy, what the pre-ranking is, because he might not be there for you when it comes back around to your turn. And you might have to just go ahead and take him if it's a guy that you're really adamant about getting on your team. And then further, if there's a guy that you're looking at and you can see like, oh, wow, there's some real value here. This guy is slipping to XYZ round or whatever it might be. And you can kind of at least target in the future that guy kind of in that realm, in that area of the draft. And so just, paying attention to those different things can certainly give you, again, an edge on the rest of these people. Because, guys, DraftKings starting best ball, there will be a lot of people who've never played best ball before ever in these tournaments here. So even the slightest edge you can have is actually going to be a much bigger edge.
Yeah, and this is also DraftKings' first run at best ball. And I was looking through the best ball the pre-draft rankings last night. They've got Clyde Edwards-Helaire at 39th. And that's how they order the list. Whew. So, I mean, he's going ADP 11. So people are figuring it out like he's down the list farther. But you're still going to have people who don't even see him on the list until they get down into the late 30s, early 40s. So until that's adjusted, you might be able to get some value on Clyde Edwards-Helaire right now, maybe even in the second round, because he's below the fold as it currently stands.
And another thing that seems like a no-brainer, but again, you can get caught up in the draft, and you can get caught up in certain players, and you think that there's like, oh, okay, I'm definitely going to go after this guy. You really do need to look at bye weeks, though. I'm guilty of it. I'm not going to sit here and try to say I'm perfect. I have gotten done at the end of a draft and looked over and gone, oh my God, I have 7 guys on the same bye week or whatever, it's like, so you do at least need to be somewhat cognizant of bye weeks, because you can kind of get in the flow of a draft, Brett, and then you look over and go, oh man, I've botched this thing.
This is the really the main reason I do slow drafts versus the fast drafts, because that's the thing. If you don't pay attention during the draft, you're totally screwed. If you have 7-8 guys with the same bye week and you're getting 0 points from your tight end and quarterback position, you're screwed that week. You're just not going to score any points. So you have to be cognizant of the players you're drafting and when they have bye weeks.
It sounds funny, but it happens.
No, it does happen. It happened to me last year. I had 3 tight ends. They all the same bye week. Like it's so stupid. They're going to be fine the rest of the weeks, but you have to score points every single week. I will say though, there is a little strategy that I've been doing, and that's drafting some of the high end guys who have the same bye week, just because I think people are going to avoid drafting guys who have the same, like bye week 6 at the top. Just to give me a little exposure to guys who have the same bye week, so that if I advanced past the first round, I have that combination that isn't as popular as it probably should be. So, I mean, just little things to kind of give me a little variation that other people might not have.
Yeah, that's a little bit of game theory, and certainly something that I think that people should employ. If you're going to have multiple teams, I would highly recommend having multiple teams, giving yourself as many opportunities as possible. Diversifying is certainly a way to go as well. Now, let's get into some of these players here, Brett. This is what people are going to say, like, okay, I know how to play now. I know some basic strategy. Now, who the hell should I be drafting? So, let's take a look at these. You just mentioned Clyde, and a guy that I was drafting ahead of most people, even when he was not necessarily guaranteed the starting role. Now that he is guaranteed the starting role, I like him a little bit less because he is going off the board much higher. I still think the upside here for Clyde could be top 5. Maybe top 3 even on the highest high-powered scoring offense in the league. But I know you're a little bit uncomfortable with where he's going right now.
I am, just because of the reaction, like the immediate reaction of people after Damian Williams opts out. They're like, oh my God, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And then he just jumps up the top of draft boards. I can't pay that kind of price on Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Right. I would much rather have a Zeke, a Kamara, even like a Joe Mixon, Miles Sanders. I think I would rather have, just because I haven't seen Clyde Edwards-Helaire and what his role is going to look like. So I'm not quite comfortable drafting him ahead of those guys yet, but I get it. He has that upside, like a top 3 running back. So the hype is real.
I think we kind of tipped our hand at the beginning here, but we're real high on the big 2 tight ends, and we're probably liking them a little bit better than most, at least liking them better than most as a strategy, because the edge you get on the field in getting a Kittle and Kelsey at that particular position, because tight end is literally, it is like here, and then the guy's just a huge drop off from that point. We're a little bit bigger on those 2 tight ends, and I honestly think it is a super sound strategy. Again, injury could derail your whole strategy here, but if these guys stay healthy, I really love having one of those 2 guys in my lineup.
Yeah, I mean, I always try to find the next Travis Kelce. I think there are a couple of guys who have that potential, but still, I mean, there's a lot of risk in that. And I don't want to reach for a guy like a Mike Gesicki or TJ Hawkinson, hoping that they become Kelce when they're just going to put up duds for you week after week. So yeah, there's really like no safer play than a Kelce in best ball, because he's going to be your scorer every single week at that position.
Love that strategy. Now, you are going to see a theme here moving forward with some Colts love. And this is, I'm not ashamed by it at all here, Brett. And I know you are not either. T.Y. Hilton, I take T.Y. Hilton earlier than everybody. Basically, I have a ton of exposure to T.Y. Hilton. And frankly, I just like this Colts offense. I like Phillip Rivers being at quarterback here, an obvious upgrade at the position from this last season. T.Y. Hilton still very productive, even with that shaky quarterback situation. And the one thing we do know, if you've watched Phillip Rivers over the last 5 years play football, he just will huck the ball down the field. And that is where T.Y. Hilton comes into play here. They got him some other weapons on that offense so that T.Y. Hilton isn't going to see tons of double teams. It isn't going to be the only sole focus of that offense as well. So love T.Y. Hilton.
So the Colts offense is a little muddled. Like, we don't know what the running back position is going to look like yet. Outside of T.Y., we don't know what the wide receiver position is going to look like yet. We don't know what the tight end position is going to look like yet. The good thing about that is all these guys are free right now. So you can, if you're playing multiple lineups and you like the Colts as much as we do, you can vary how you're building your Colts stacks. So you go with like a Rivers, T.Y., even like a Marlon Mack. Like, who's to say Marlon Mack just doesn't end up with a starting job all year if something happens to Taylor? You can get him super late right now. So that's what I've been doing. I've been building like Rivers, Pittman, Paris Campbell stacks in case something happens to Hilton, because I really like this offense. They have the easiest schedule in the NFL.
Yeah.
Playing behind the best offensive line in the NFL. They're going to score points. You don't know yet where it's going to come from. But the good thing is, like, you can get all these guys for like next to zero capital. So just stack them at the end of your draft and kind of fill out your roster with them, with the studs that you're taking early on.
Guys that are going ahead of T.Y. Hilton. And don't get me wrong, these are all guys that I am okay with, but I'm just, Robert Woods, DK Metcalf, Terry McLaurin, Cortland Sutton, DJ Chark, Keenan Allen, like all these guys going ahead of T.Y. Hilton, and they're all fine in their own right. But I mean, you're basically able to go and get T.Y. Hilton after all those guys are coming off the board, where in my opinion, T.Y. Hilton is going into this season definitely on par with any of those guys I just mentioned. And I probably prefer him over all of them as well.
He's one of the most underrated receivers coming into the year just because of the injury concern, the age concern. But the guy, he's Mr. Spike Week. He has monster weeks that can win you a week. So I think if you like the Colts, you have to have some exposure to T.Y. I wish he was a little better at avoiding contact. He kind of embraces contact, which worries me. But that's why I'm going with guys like Pittman and Paris Campbell later on other teams, just in case that happens.
So talk about your boy Josh Allen here. I am higher on him. I think you are as well. And listen, we're not talking about necessarily he's going to lead him to the Super Bowl. That's not what we're worried about here. We're not worried about that in fantasy football. We are worried about numbers. We are worried about stats. We are worried about putting up points. And Josh Allen just does that.
Yeah, rushing yards, rushing touchdowns. Is he a good quarterback? To be determined. I don't know. He's not very good right now, but is he a good fantasy quarterback? He's awesome. And I think people are finally coming around to that you don't have to be a good passer to be a good fantasy quarterback. And Allen is, I mean, around the goal line, he might be the guy. He might be the Cam Newton. I mean, that comp has been around for years, but like he could just be the goal line back for the Bills this year. And he has scored a bunch of touchdowns on the ground before. So he's a guy that I don't think you need to stack just because he does so much with his legs, but I do like the value you can get on Stephon Diggs right now because of the stink of Josh Allen, that people are afraid to take Stephon Diggs. So you can get him kind of late right now too. So that's a stack that I have quite a bit of already is Allen and Stephon Diggs.
So like we said, Mahomes is coming off the board. Lamar's coming off the board. Dak Prescott's coming off the board. Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray. So these guys are all coming off the board. So the half of your league has kind of already taken quarterbacks when it comes to that point. If you're waiting, you're going to see there are going to be leagues where Carson Wentz goes ahead of Josh Allen. There are going to be leagues where you're going to see Matt Ryan go ahead of Josh Allen as well. So take advantage of that situation, being able to get Josh Allen way down in the 80s and 90s in some of these drafts. I'm very, very comfortable taking him in that spot and having him be the first quarterback on my roster.
Well, he gives you a nice floor too, because of his rushing. So, I mean, you get the floor with the ceiling if he does hit Diggs or Brown for a long pass. I mean, he's just such a good fantasy quarterback. I like having, I don't want a lot of exposure because I do like to spend down at quarterback and wait. But if he's there where I'm comfortable taking him, I'm going to take him every time.
Jalen Reagor, another guy here. If you take a look at this Eagles wide receiving core, last year, completely decimated. They were literally hot dog vendors were lining up a wide receiver for this Eagles team. Now you have an opt-out with them with Marquise Goodwin already. So here you go. Reagor is going to start from day one. He is going to be a big part of this offense here. And Brett, like it might not pay dividends in weeks 1, 2, or 3 or something like that, but you're not having to pay a big price to get Reagor on your lineup anyway. He's really, really late coming off the board. And so as this guy works his way into this offense, down the stretch where you could really use the spike weeks and really use the production out of him, I think is where you're going to be able to really utilize having him as part of your, 8 or 9 wide receivers that you're drafting.
Yeah, some of these rookie wide receivers landed in spots where you're like, I don't see him producing right away. Even like a CeeDee Lamb in Dallas, they don't know what he's going to look like. Jerry Jeudy is kind of in a crowded situation in Denver. Jalen Reagor has he could slide in and be the number one guy right away. Right. He's probably the most talented wide receiver on this team right now. So I could definitely see him producing within the first 4 weeks. And we know Carson Wentz loves to chuck it downfield, and that's where Reagor is going to eat. So I think he's being underdrafted right now. I don't have a lot of him. There's another rookie wide receiver I prefer in that price range, but I can definitely get behind Jalen Reagor.
Yeah, if you take a look, guys, coming off the board in the 130s, 140s is Reagor. This is like, again, a guy, as Brett just said, could literally be the best wide receiver on the team from day one. So
he's probably a top 100 player.
Yeah.
So he's being drafted way too late.
I think he's 3 rounds. I think he's being drafted too late. So I would be willing to step up and take him earlier than other people out there for sure. And then we just talked about those stacks that we like. And DJ Moore is another one of those guys that I'm willing to step up and take before other people. Brett, we're talking about a big upgrade at quarterback with Teddy Bridgewater coming in. And the other upgrade here is, much to my dismay, much to my heartbreak, that Joe Brady leaves the LSU Fighting Tigers and heads over and is now the passing game coordinator over there in Carolina. And listen, this guy, you saw what he did with the LSU offense last year. It's the NFL. I understand he's not going to be able to just completely out scheme all of these players and all these defenses and whatnot. But I think that this Panthers offense is going to look much, much different. I think that there are going to be a lot of pass attempts in this offense. And DJ Moore was pretty productive last season, even with that train wreck that was going on over there last year. Step in Teddy Bridgewater, a fairly conservative, accurate dude, and you're able to have DJ Moore run more precise routes and some things that are really, really designed to highlight his skill set, what Brady brings to the table here. Love these Panthers receivers.
Yeah, DJ Moore's a stud, and he's going to get all the opportunity this year because this is a Carolina defense that's probably the worst in the NFL. The secondary is a train wreck, so they're going to be playing from behind a lot, and I can see them getting in a lot of shootouts, which is weird to say because we haven't seen that a lot from the Panthers. But I'm fine with Bridgewater. I think he's a great play in these best balls if you can pair him with DJ Moore, McCaffrey, even I like Robbie Anderson a little bit too in that offense. I could see him going off a few weeks. So, I mean, I'm with you. I like the Panthers a lot, and DJ Moore really is outside of CMC, obviously. But if you can't get the first pick, I like a Panther stack with DJ Moore.
So let's talk guys we dislike, guys we're fading, whatever it might be. I mean, I know a lot of people want to hear who we do like as opposed to who we don't like, but I think there's some nuggets here, at least from my end. And then I like that you disagree with me here on one of the other players. Chris Carson, a guy I'm having pretty much no exposure to. I don't like that whole situation. They brought in Carlos Hyde, who we know has been a fantasy vulture for the last 25 years, it seems like. I mean, the guy just continues to sign with teams and steal fantasy touches and touchdowns and yardage and everything else. And they still have Travis Homer in that offense. For me, Chris Carson's a guy I'm pretty much having no exposure to at all. But this guy is one that I think do not see eye to eye on here, and that's Nick Chubb. For me, I don't like paying the price at the end of the first round for a guy that I think might only be on the field for half the time. I think Kareem Hunt is really going to dig into a lot of snaps and to a lot of that third down work as well. So he's going to get all the pass catching, all the passing yards as well there. Dontrell Hilliard is a guy that they like to get on the field sometimes as well on third down. So I don't know, man. Nick Chubb, just for me, the price is too high.
I get it. And I'm a Kareem Hunt guy. I love Kareem Hunt. I think he's tremendous. And he will eat into Nick Chubb's production. There's no question. But for me, like Nick Chubb, if Kareem Hunt wasn't there, would be a top 5 running back. So I'm willing to pay a low round 1 price for him or early second round price for him because it's dropped just because of the narrative of Kareem Hunt taking over some of his role. So, I mean, I'm still getting a player who can break off a long run. He's got track speed. He can win a week for you on one play. I mean, the guy he does it every single year, multiple times, like the 50, 60, 70-yard touchdown run. So I love having a guy like that who can just outrun everybody once he gets an open space. And he's going to get enough touches for me to where I feel comfortable with his floor. And I want as much exposure to the Browns offense this year as possible. I cannot even tell you how much Browns I have so far this year. Baker, Odell, Nick Chubb stacks, like Chubb, Landry, Baker stacks. I have all the Browns. So really Chubb is the anchor of that for me. And I have a lot of them.
Another guy that we do agree on, though, is DeAndre Hopkins. And we are not talking about the talent of DeAndre Hopkins. The guy is phenomenal. He is unbelievable. One of the most fun guys to watch in all of the NFL. But there are a lot of mouths to feed there in Arizona. No team runs more 4 wide receiver sets than Arizona does. Kyler Murray actually in his rookie season looked like a pretty competent quarterback, is probably going to take a decent little step here in year 2. I think he knows well enough to not force the ball to D-Hop just because D-Hop is on the field. He still has some really good, talented dudes that are going to be out there on the field. And D-Hop, with all of that pressure taken off him, doesn't have to be the guy. They don't have to force targets his way. And so the price you have to pay, we're not talking talent. We think he's amazing. But the price you have to pay, I do not think the production is going to equal up to the price you have to pay.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think he's even worth a second round pick at this point. I like it. I actually think this is a downgrade at quarterback for him, not because of the talent, but just because he's not the guy anymore. And you got a quarterback who loves to just take off and run the football. Like Watson did that too, but like Murray is a runner. Like he's just going to do that. And so, I'm with you. I don't think Hopkins is going to be able to reach the production he's done with Watson. And I can't see ego being a thing with him either because Larry Fitzgerald is there. Like, I don't think he's going to be.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be okay with whatever volume he gets because he's got like the GOAT. He's playing next to the GOAT. So I think Larry will humble him a little bit. So I can't see them forcing balls to D-Hop this year, and that's going to hurt his fantasy production.
It is. I mean, you know that Larry Fitzgerald's going to get his 5 or 6 targets a game. If Christian Kirk is healthy, you know he's going to get his 5-6 targets a game. Andy Isabella is probably going to be on the field. He'll get 2 or 3. I mean, it's just the way that it goes. You know, I mean, it's just the way that team is going to operate. So I'm with you there. We talked a little bit about how we like to go about quarterbacks. That just means we're not really ending up with Lamar or Patrick Mahomes very often. And in my case, actually, the answer is 0. I have 0 shares of Mahomes and Lamar because I'm not willing to pay a first round or a second round pick for those guys. And in a lot of these drafts, they are going way too high, in my opinion. The opportunity cost is just too high because you can load in, like we're talking about, the stud running backs where the scarcity is just much, much higher than it is at the quarterback position. So I don't know about you, Brett. I have 0 shares of Mahomes and Lamar. Same.
The only way I could see myself landing on Mahomes is if I did do something where I wanted a Chiefs stack and do the Edwards-Helaire, Kelsey at the bottom of the first round, top of the second, and then try and get Mahomes in the third. But I might try that once, but I'm just, you have to pay so much for a Chiefs stack. I'm just not really willing to do it. And Lamar, I see some regression. I think teams are going to adapt to him this year, so I can't see him putting up the numbers, and that's the price you're paying for. You're paying for last year's Lamar numbers if you want him this early.
The another guy I'm kind of fading here, Allen Robinson. That quarterback situation in Chicago, for me, just nothing I want to be a part of. I think he's a talented dude, but I just don't know how many opportunities he's going to get. I mean, it doesn't matter how many targets you get if they're 12 feet over your head or thrown into the ground and like off target and all the stuff like that. And again, the price you have to pay. We're not talking about talent for a lot of these guys. We're talking about where you have to get them in drafts and the production that we expect from them. It's just too high for me for Allen Robinson.
I want to like him, but he's in the same price range as OBJ and DJ Moore, who we love, and Juju. I mean, I kind of like a Juju redemption this year too. So I would rather have those guys than Allen Robinson at this price. Absolutely.
And the last thing here, we talked about the tight ends. For me, I'm really never getting that second tier of tight end. If I don't get one of the big 2 in Kelsey or Kittle, I'm pretty much going to wait. I'll take 3 tight ends in the draft. I'm going to just hope that one of the 3 hits every week. But where Ertz and Andrews are going, and even Ingram for me, are guys that is just a little too much for me to pay. I would rather use that real estate in the draft to add a really solid receiver or a running back that I'm still pretty confident in. Where these guys are going, I'm just not ending up with any of those second tier tight ends, man. It's like, it's either the top of the top for me, or I'll just wait and I'll throw 3 tight ends in there. And hopefully one of those guys has a good week to week.
Yeah, same. I have 0 Andrews. I have 0 Ertz. The one guy I do like is Ingram, but I have been able to get him in like the 7th round, sometimes even the 8th round. So I'm willing to pay that price for a guy who at his peak is a top 3 tight end. He's a wide receiver in that body. So I'm willing to pay for that. I think Giants are kind of an interesting stack this year too. So I do have quite a bit of Ingram. Waller, I think, kind of fits into that region as well. I have some of him, but outside of that, if you're not getting the top 2 guys, I like some darts near the bottom.
And let's end things with some of the later round guys that I think that we're looking into and that we're kind of getting shares of here. And I'll start. I mean, I'm pretty bearish on the 49ers team as a whole, but I love opportunity, and I love opportunity in fantasy. And Brandon Ayuk is stepping into a really good situation here. Emmanuel Sanders is out of town. Deebo Samuel is hurt and is likely to miss several games to begin the season. Ayuk is going to step right in, and he's going to have to produce, Brett. I mean, like, there's going to be no choice, or this offense is not going to work. So, I mean, like, he is going to have to be a contributor to this offense, and he is going way later than a receiver who is going to start in what we consider to be likely a pretty decent offense, at least in most people's perception. He's going way later than he should.
Ayuk is the guy that I haven't watched enough tape. When I watched ASU tape the last 2 years, I was watching N'Keal Harry. Like, Ayuk was never really on my radar. So I don't know enough about this kid, but a lot of smart people love him. And it's a Kyle Shanahan offense. He might just eat while Deebo is down. He's a guy who could actually help you early in the season, which rookies don't tend to do. So it's a weird dynamic with Brandon Ayuk this year. But yeah, he's going way later than he should right now.
He's going in the 160s, dude. He is going in the 160s. Yeah. And this is it's kind of like we were talking about with Rager. He might be a top 100 guy just for the opportunity that is being presented for him. So again, a guy that maybe you want to target for a little bit later. Guy here, a secondary receiver for Aaron Rodgers, Brett, is always going to entice me. So give me some Al-Lazard. Look, he's starting. Aaron Rodgers is throwing him the ball. Aaron Rodgers has made terrible receivers put up good fantasy numbers for the last several years because they refused to get him a true number 2. And I think that this is just one of those opportunities where I'm going to say, hey, look, the price is too good on a dude that's going to get a lot of balls thrown his way.
Yeah, Rodgers likes him. They have chemistry. I could see several spike weeks for Lazard as a guy who can contribute to your team during the season and well into the playoff rounds. So I'm with you. I think he's going way too late right now, and that's probably going to adjust as we get closer to the season. But now that Funchess is out of the picture, Lazard is clearly the number 2 option in that offense.
So tell us about, we talked, I gave my love for T.Y. Hilton, so I'm going to let you take our love for the rest of that offense here, because there are 2 other guys that you can get late in drafts that we are actually pretty high on because we feel like the upside is massive.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get as many pieces of this Colts offense in as many ways as possible, and you can get them so late. We talked about Michael Pittman. We talked about Paris Campbell is 2 guys who you can grab basically for free at the end of drafts, and they're right near each other in the ADP. So, I mean, if you draft Phillip Rivers, I think Rivers is right in there too. I mean, it's 3 guys you can just kind of stack together at the end of your draft to fill out your roster, and all of a sudden now you got a built-in stack that who knows?
They cost you nothing.
They cost you nothing, and like I said, the easiest schedule in the NFL this year, and Rivers playing behind that offensive line is pretty sexy. If something does happen to T.Y., those are your contributors. We saw what happened in that offense when T.Y. went down last year. You got Zach Pascal suddenly as a contributor in best ball teams. If they, probably didn't draft Zach Pascal in best ball teams, but a guy who was a contributor in fantasy last year all of a sudden. So, I mean, that could be the Michael Pittman or Paris Campbell this year. And that's the guy. Those are the guys I want late in drafts. So yeah, I'm all about those 2 late in my best ball drafts with Phillip Rivers is kind of a unique stack that I don't think anybody really is going to have.
And finally, let's talk about whenever we're building these 3 quarterback teams here, what we do like in these quarterbacks is volume. That's why we're drawn to Teddy Bridgewater, because we think that Panthers team could be bad and they're going to be throwing a ton. Of course, the addition of Brady is also a really good thing for that passing offense as well. Call me a homer, but Joe Burrow here is another guy that I'm kind of rounding out my quarterback drafts with. If you take a look at this team, still likely, because the defense is pretty beaten up, still likely to be down in a lot of games. There's going to be volume there. And then let me read you off, by the way, who this guy is going to be throwing to. Remember A.J. Green? Yeah, he didn't play all last year, but A.J. Green is going to be back. Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, who they drafted. John Ross is still there. Joe Mixon is still there. The weapons that Joe Burrow has in that Bengals offense, Brett, is unbelievable. And if there's going to be volume, if there's going to be games where they're down 2 and 3 scores and he's throwing the ball 45, 50 times, those are going to be fantasy gold weeks for us. And we are going to love the fact that we took Joe Burrow very late in our best ball drafts.
Yeah, and I don't know what's happened so far, but I have zero Joe Burrow exposure. That needs to change because I'm with you. I like Burrow and that offense this year because I think they're going to be playing from behind a lot, and there's a lot of firepower there. So I think that's a really fun stack if you want to go that route with like a Mixon, Burrow, I don't know, Boyd or John Ross maybe. Like there's just so many guys who could have spike weeks in that offense. So I definitely in my next round of best balls, I need to get some Joe Burrow with like a Joe Mixon because I don't have any
guys that are going ahead of Joe Burrow. You know, Tannehill is going ahead of him. Jared Goff is going ahead of him. Ben Roethlisberger is going ahead of him. And, you know, there's question marks around all of those guys. So Burrow falling to you in that spot after someone wants to choose to take, you know, Ben Roethlisberger after he says he's coming back from 3 torn ligaments in his arm, or taking Ryan Tannehill in a run heavy offense. Like, you know, by all means, draft those guys and let Joe Burrow fall to me.
Definitely. I'm with you.
Yeah, I'm with you on all that stuff. Guys, if you don't already subscribe to this channel, please hit the little subscribe button down below. Go ahead and hit the little bell so that you get notified. And let us know in the comments if there's anybody else you'd like us to touch on. I mean, we got time before the NFL season, so we can make more videos. We can talk to you about different players, give you some other advice and some different things like that. We're also going to be breaking all this down over on thelines.com. So if you've not visited the website, be sure and head over to thelines.com as well. We really do appreciate that. And we appreciate you liking this video as well. Good luck in all of your best ball drafts.